A flight attendant points her finger, trembling. A captain hesitates. A passenger refuses to move. Phones rise, live streams explode. And then 5 words cut through the cabin like thunder. People like you don't belong here. 100,000 people are now watching. Careers are about to collapse. And in seat 1B sits the chairwoman of the airline herself. This isn't just another flight story. This is the night the skies changed forever. Welcome back to the channel. If you believe dignity shouldn't need a boarding pass, make sure to subscribe, because today's story is one you'll never forget. Flight 1924. The ding of the intercom cut through the cabin like a crack in glass. 162 passengers looked up from glowing screens in unison. Captain Reynolds, please report to first class, immediately. The voice of lead flight attendant, Taryn Holt, trembled just enough to make everyone sit up straighter. Something was wrong. In seat 1B. Elena Carter hadn't moved for 15 minutes. Not when Taryn asked to see her ticket. Not when she pressed harder, voice sharp. Not even when passengers began raising their phones, cameras blinking red. Elena sat still, hands folded neatly in her lap, back straight, Cartier tank glinting faintly on her wrist. Navy suit pressed sharp enough to cut. Hair pulled into a tight bun, a few curls softening the edges. She didn't flinch. She didn't bargain, she just waited. "Ma'am," Taryn said again, voice pitched low but cutting through the quiet. "You're holding up the entire flight." Elena looked up finally. Calm, measured, almost surgical. And then that smile, thin, controlled like the click of a blade you didn't see coming. The cockpit door hissed open. Captain Samuel Reynolds stepped out, tall frame framed by the glow of the instrument panel behind him. 25 years in the air. Creases at his eyes from squinting into sunrises over oceans. A gold ring worn down by years of gloves. He paused, scanning the cabin like a surgeon assessing a patient. "What's going on, Taryn?" Holt clutched her iPad like a shield. "Passenger in 1B, refusing to provide ID, won't move. Other customers are complaining." Reynolds studied Elena, navy suit. Composed posture. Calm eyes. Nothing about her screamed trouble. But Holt had never raised a false alarm in her career. "Ma'am," Reynolds said evenly. "I'm Captain Reynolds. Looks like we've got some confusion with your seat. May I see your boarding pass?" Elena opened her wallet slowly, deliberately, and handed it over. United Skies Airlines, Flight 1924, Seat 1B, perfectly valid. This could be fake, Holt cut in. Her tone had hardened. "What about a driver's license? Credit card used for purchase?" "I have them," Elena said simply. "Then please. Later." One word, soft, absolute. A murmur rolled through the front rows. In 3A, a young woman with a cropped bob and free press sticker on her phone tilted her camera higher. The red light glowed steady. On her screen, the title appeared. Hashtag Flight 1924-Live. Reynolds tried again. "Ma'am, we can sort this out at the gate. If you'll just step off for a moment." "No," Elena said again, voice level. "I'm in the seat I paid for. I'm flying to Seattle in this seat." A man in one let out a huff, loud enough to be caught on video. "Ridiculous." Taryn's jaw tightened. She drew a sharp breath, like someone who had finally made a decision. "Captain, I've seen thousands of passengers. I know who belongs in first class and who doesn't." Reynolds turned his head slowly. "What exactly do you mean by that?" Her voice cracked but carried. "People like her don't usually sit here." The words fell heavy. Silence clamped down on the cabin. A teenager in 2C dropped her earbuds. The journalist in 3A whispered to her livestream. "Did she just say that?" Elena tilted her head, eyes sharp now. "People like me?" Holt froze, lips dry. "You know what I mean." Reynolds felt something cold crawl up his spine. He looked at the rows behind him, every phone pointed like a weapon, every face waiting. He felt the weight of judgment, not from one woman, but from a digital mob already forming outside this aluminum shell. "Ma'am Carter," he said carefully, "for safety and for everyone's comfort, I'm going to need your cooperation. Please step off briefly." "Comfort for who?" Elena asked quietly. "Why is the presence of a black woman in seat 1B so uncomfortable?" A man in 2D snorted. "Always about race. Some of us just want peace and quiet, and I want not to be dragged out of a seat I bought," Elena shot back. Her hand rested lightly on her watch, as if marking time itself. The intercom crackled again. A crisp voice from the cockpit. "Ground security is boarding now." Holt exhaled hard, relief in her chest. "Captain?" Reynolds nodded, but his eyes betrayed hesitation. He caught the journalist's lens again. Numbers climbed in her corner screen. 1,200 gives 4,600, gives 8,900. Not just numbers. Witnesses. 2. Security officers entered the cabin. Officer Keaton, broad shoulders, clipped words. Officer Min Tran, younger, quicker, steps light like a runner. Black gloves. Zip ties at the ready. "What's the situation, Captain?" Keaton asked. "Passenger refusing to comply," Reynolds said. Keaton squared himself toward Elena. "Ma'am, we'll need you to come with us." "This won't take long." Elena reached into her wallet again. She placed a card on the tray table. Heavy, matte, black. A hush rippled through. Not everyone recognized it, but Keaton did. The Centurion, rare, elite, costing more in annual fees than some people made in a month. "That's not ID," Keaton muttered. Elena met his stare. "I didn't ask you to confirm my ID. I'm asking you to confirm your bias." Gasps. The journalist whispered. "That's going in the headline. Her live stream count, 19,000. Comments flooding." She called it out. "Keep filming." "This is gold." Reynolds tugged at his collar. He turned to Holt. "Did you record your first interaction?" "I filed it as non-compliance," Holt snapped, clinging to procedure like a life raft. "You said people like her." The journalist's voice cut through. "Explain that for the record." Holt stiffened. "Who are you?" "Someone who paid for this flight. And someone who knows media law." The journalist's smile was razor thin. "So go ahead, continue." "Last chance, ma'am," Keaton said, voice tight. "Please stand." Elena looked up. "No," the word cracked like glass. "Not shouted. Not sharp. Just final." Keaton shifted forward. Min touched his arm. "Easy," he murmured. "We don't need a scene." At that moment, Reynolds' service phone buzzed again. He glanced down. "USOCC urgent," he answered, half turning away from cameras. "Sam?" The voice of United Skies Operations Control Center, calm, steady. "We're monitoring social media. Do not proceed with removal. There are safety. No, do not touch her. Passenger 1B is not ordinary." Reynolds' stomach dropped. He glanced at Elena. She was watching him, serene, as if she knew exactly what words were flowing through his earpiece. "Announce a delay. Keep calm. Headquarters will call back in 2 minutes." The line clicked dead. Reynolds lowered the phone slowly. Every eye pinned him. Every phone recording. "Security stands down," Reynolds said. Keaton swallowed anger. Min gave a small nod toward Elena, an apology with no words. Holt clutched her tablet tighter, as if she could will the day to rewind. Elena's gaze softened, almost kind. "Double quotes, Ms. Holt," she said. "Why don't we start over?" "Start over?" Holt whispered. "Yes." Elena gestured to the empty seat beside her. "Sit. I don't like serious conversations with people standing over me." Reluctantly, Holt lowered herself into 1C. Phones leaned closer. Elena placed a leather folio on the table, flipped it open, and slid out a single card. White. Perfectly cut. The United Skies Airlines logo pressed deep into the stock. Below it, embossed in black, Elena Carter, chairwoman. The cabin erupted in gasps. Phone zoomed. The journalists. Counter. 35,400 gives 42,000 gives 52,000. Holt's voice cracked. That's not possible. The chairwoman doesn't fly commercial. Elena folded the folio shut. And why not? Do you assume we only exist in boardrooms and private jets? Reynolds's phone buzzed again. This time, the name on the screen froze his blood. Patricia Hawley, EVP, United Skies, he answered. Patricia? Sam, Hawley said, voice firm. Stop everything. That woman is exactly who she says she is. Remove security. Remove Holt from speaking. Keep your mouth shut. We're sending executives onto that plane right now. Onto the plane? Reynolds repeated, dazed. And Sam, Hale's voice dropped colder. Over 40,000 people are watching your cabin live. Reynolds looked up. The journalist's phone glowed. The number surged again. 62,000, 70,00. He hung up, turned back to his crew, and forced the words out. Stand down. Everyone stands down. Elena leaned back, eyes scanning the cabin. Phones everywhere. History crystallizing in real time. She smiled, but it wasn't triumph. It was something heavier. Now, she said softly, shall we begin the real conversation? The cabin was buzzing now, a hive on fire. Phones lifted higher, faces lit with shock, disbelief. Awe. The journalist in 3, Amaya Ortiz, whispered to her livestream, she's the chairwoman. The chairwoman of the airline. Comments exploded across her screen. No way, she planned this. This is history. Elena Carter didn't move. She let the silence build. Let it choke the oxygen out of the air until even Captain Reynolds shifted uneasily on his feet. Then the cabin door opened again. A small group of executives stepped inside. Gray suits sharp under fluorescent light. At the center was Patricia Hawley, United Skies Executive Vice President. Her heels struck the aisle like a metronome. Passengers craned their necks, phones swung, capturing every frame. Madam Chair, Hawley said softly, stopping in front of Elena. We're late. No, Elena replied, voice calm. You're right on time. Reynolds felt his knees weaken. Executives never boarded aircraft mid-crisis. Not unless something seismic was happening. Hale's eyes flicked to the dozens of phones pointed at them. Then back to Elena. We're listening. Elena turned to Holt, who sat frozen in one sea, tears pooling at the edges of her eyes. Ms. Holt, let's start with you. Tell me again why you thought I didn't belong here. Holt's throat clicked. I thought, you assumed. Elena leaned forward. You saw a black woman in a tailored suit, in a seat you don't often see us occupy. And you assumed fraud, not fact. A murmur swept the cabin. Someone in row 4 muttered, damn. Elena let her gaze move to Reynolds. And you, Captain. You followed her lead. Without evidence. Without hesitation. Tell me, how many passengers have you removed from first class in your 25 years? Reynolds opened his mouth, closed it. Sweat prickled under his collar. I don't keep numbers. I do. Elena tapped her tablet. The screen glowed bright, statistics bold. 17 removals in your career. 15 of them passengers of color. Gasps, phone zoomed closer. Maya's live stream counter hit 85,000. Reynolds staggered, his back brushing the galley wall. He had told himself each case was procedure, each one necessary. But the math didn't lie. Coincidence? Elena asked. Reynolds swallowed. I never thought about it. That's the problem, Elena said. Her voice sharpened, slicing clean through the hum of the cabin. You never thought. You acted. And tonight, 85,000 people are watching that pattern unfold live. Holt's breathing hitched. She looked at Elena like a drowning swimmer spotting shore. "Please, I didn't mean." Elena raised a hand. "Intent doesn't erase impact. You don't get credit for not meaning harm when harm still lands." Phones caught every syllable. The internet was already clipping her words into headlines. The cabin door cracked open again. This time, not executives, federal aviation security officers. Their badges gleamed under the lights. The mood shifted, sharp, electric. One officer stepped forward. "Captain Reynolds, we've been briefed. Do you require removal assistance?" Before Reynolds could answer, Patricia Hawley cut in. "No, stand down, ma'am. With respect, you'll get a call in 30 seconds from Washington if you ignore me," Hawley snapped. "Stand down." The officer hesitated. Then his radio buzzed. He pressed it to his ear, face tightening. A nod, retreat. They stepped back, lingering just inside the cabin door. Passengers whispered fiercely. Someone in row 6 hissed, "This is bigger than the airline." They weren't wrong. Elena rose slowly from her seat. Phones tilted upward, following her like sunflowers to the light. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, voice carrying effortlessly to the back rows. "What you've witnessed today isn't about one boarding pass. It isn't about one seat. It's about assumptions. Invisible, silent, corrosive assumptions. Assumptions that tell flight crews who looks legitimate and who doesn't, who belongs and who doesn't, who deserves comfort and who deserves suspicion." She paused. The silence was deep enough to hear the engines humming beneath their feet. "And here's the truth," she continued. "These assumptions aren't accidents. They're patterns. Patterns that have humiliated passengers like me for decades. Patterns that cost companies billions. Patterns that end careers." She held up her tablet again. This time, not just stats. Live messages scrolling. CNN request interview. MSNBC line open. #United Skies discrimination trending #1. You see? Elena's eyes swept the rows. This plane isn't just full of passengers anymore. It's full of witnesses. Maya whispered into her live stream. 90,000. Almost 100K. Elena locked eyes with Holt. "You want to know the cost of your 30 minutes of bias? Our stock price has already dropped 6%. That's $800 million erased. 800 million because you couldn't imagine me in this seat." Holt sobbed quietly, shoulders trembling. Elena turned to Reynolds. "Captain, you've flown for 25 years. Tell me, would you have questioned me if I were a white man in a golf shirt and loafers?" Reynolds's lips parted. He couldn't force the lie out. He dropped his gaze. Elena let the silence stretch, then faced the cabin again. "Passengers, understand this. Tonight, you are part of history. Because this flight will not disappear into headlines tomorrow. It will be remembered as the night bias was caught midair and grounded permanently." Applause broke out. Scattered at first, then stronger. Even reluctant hands clapped. Pulled into the current, Maya's counter hit 100,000 live viewers. Elena sat back down, smooth as ever, folding her hands in her lap. "Now," she said softly, almost to herself, "let's see what we can build from the wreckage." The livestream chat was chaos. She shut them down. "Chairwoman in first class. No way. History in real time. 100,000 eyes glued to the feed." And climbing. Elena Carter sat with perfect stillness, the calm eye of a storm tearing through corporate America. Captain Reynolds hovered near the galley, uniform damp at the collar. Taryn Holt sat slumped in 1C, tears streaking her cheeks. The entire cabin vibrated with a strange new energy, part fear, part awe, part vindication. Then Reynolds's radio hissed. "Captain Reynolds, this is operations." The voice was crisp, urgent. "You are to maintain current course. No action against passenger. 1B, expect direct communication from the CEO. The CEO." Reynolds closed his eyes for half a second. 25 years flying tin cans and 737s. And never once had he spoken to the man at the top. The intercom chimed again. But not from the cockpit. From the tablet in Elena's lap. She angled the screen so the cabin could see. A video call. The United Skies boardroom appeared, 6 faces staring out. Men in dark suits. Women with sharp haircuts. Behind them, a wall-sized screen showing the same livestream every passenger on this plane was watching. Elena, one woman's voice broke the tension. Patricia Watkins, senior VP, were watching. Phones whipped up higher. Maya Ortiz's stream counter, 120,000. Elena's reply was smooth, measured. Then you already know. Your crew profiled me. Your captain nearly had me removed. And now the world is watching you decide whether to cover it up or confront it. One board member cleared his throat. Madam Chair, with respect, perhaps this discussion. Not perhaps, Alana's tone cut him off. We do it here. In the open. On camera. Because cover-ups die in the dark, but accountability survives the light. The chat exploded. Say it louder. Accountability on camera. First time a CEO's about to get schooled by his own chair. The cabin door swung again. More movement. 2 federal investigators in dark windbreakers stepped in, clipboards ready. Their badges flashed gold under the lights. Ma'am, one of them said cautiously, we're here to take statements. This is now a federal civil rights incident. Elena nodded once, then turned the tablet so the entire cabin could see the board again. Perfect. We'll make this efficient. Everyone hears everything. Passengers leaned forward. Not a cough. Not a rustle. Elena's voice dropped lower, steadier, deadlier. United Skies logged 47 discrimination complaints in the last quarter. Alone. 47. I told you in board meetings those weren't isolated. Tonight proves it. And I won't allow us to bury this under NDAs and settlements. Patricia Watkins shifted in her chair on screen. What are you proposing, Elena? I'm not proposing. I'm announcing. She tapped her tablet. A press release appeared. Bold headline, United Skies launches Carter Protocol, zero tolerance for discrimination. Passengers gasped. Phone zoomed. The bullet points scrolled. Mandatory bias training for all employees. Third-party audits of passenger interactions. $25 million fund for civil rights advocacy. Body cameras for all flight crews. Immediate termination for verified bias incidents. Maya whispered into her mic. 150,000 live. This is a corporate revolution. Elena's gaze swept the cabin. Ladies and gentlemen, you are now witnesses not to an incident, but to the start of a new era. This protocol will be the law of the skies. Beginning now, applause broke out. Some passengers stood to clap. Holt buried her face in her hands. Reynolds swallowed hard, his world crumbling and rebuilding in the same breath. On the screen, the CEO of United Skies leaned forward, his face grim, pale. Robert Jordan. Elena, he said slowly, do you understand the scale of what you're doing? Billions at stake. Thousands of jobs. Elena met his stare. Do you understand the cost of not doing it? Bias has already burned billions. Tonight, it burned our credibility. But tomorrow, we can show the world how to change. The silence that followed was heavy, almost sacred. Then Jordan gave the smallest of nods. Proceed. The live stream counter hit 180,000. Maya's hand shook around her phone. She whispered, the Carter Protocol just became law. Outside, news helicopters circled. Cameras fixed on the United Skies logo painted across the fuselage of Flight 1924. On the ground, satellite trucks rolled toward the tarmac, their dishes pointed skyward. The story had already left the cabin. It was in living rooms, on breaking banners, in hashtags climbing worldwide. And at 36,000 feet, Elena Carter sat back in her seat, folded her hands again, and let the storm spread. "Welcome," she murmured, just loud enough for the microphones to catch. "To the flight that changes everything." The descent began. Engines hummed lower, cabin lights dimmed. Phoenix sprawled below, lights glittering like spilled diamonds. Captain Reynolds announced, voice tight, "Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be landing in 20 minutes. Please remain seated." Nobody cared. Phones stayed high. Livestream still rolling. Maya whispered into her mic, 200,000 live. 200,000. Elena Carter sat steady in 1B, hands folded again, the embodiment of control. But her eyes flicked once toward the window, toward the flood of news vans waiting below. Touchdown. Tires screeched. The cabin jolted, then roared with applause, not for the landing, but for the moment. For history. As the plane slowed, passengers pressed against windows. Outside, chaos. Satellite trucks lined up, police barricades, reporters packed shoulder to shoulder. Helicopters hovered, spotlights sweeping the tarmac. The seatbelt sign dinged. Nobody moved. The cabin door cracked. The jet bridge clanged against the fuselage. And then an army. Executives in suits. Federal investigators. Airline lawyers. All funneling in, eyes wide, pens ready. The first to step forward was Inspector General Torres. Crisp navy windbreaker, badge clipped to her belt. Her voice cut the air. "Mr. Reynolds, Ms. Holt, remain seated. This is now a federal civil rights investigation." Reynolds' stomach dropped. Holt whimpered, hands shaking in her lap. Torres turned to Elena. "Madam Chair, are you prepared to give a statement?" Elena rose, calm, controlled. Every phone tilted up to catch her. "My statement," she said, "is simple. What happened on this flight is not isolated. It's not about one boarding pass. It's about a system that decides who belongs before it ever checks a ticket. Tonight you all saw it. You recorded it. And you proved it can't be hidden anymore." Applause, cheers, passengers pounding tray tables. Torres nodded once, then gestured toward the jet bridge. "The press is waiting. Are you ready?" Elena smoothed her suit. "Always." The jet bridge door opened, and the sound hit like a wave. Reporters shouting. Cameras flashing. Microphones thrust forward. "Madam Carter, is it true you staged this? Did you set up your own employees to fail? What happens to the crew? Is United Skies about to collapse?" Elena stepped into the frenzy, lights strobing across her face. She didn't flinch. She raised one hand. Silence rippled, not total, but enough. "This was never about me," she said, voice steady over the chaos. "It was about proving that bias hides in plain sight, that it humiliates people quietly until it's caught on camera. Tonight, it was caught. And from tonight forward, it will be confronted." Microphones surged closer. Reporters shouted again. "What about the crew?" Elena's gaze flicked back through the jet bridge. Reynolds and Holt emerged, pale, trembling, eyes down. Cameras swarmed them instantly. "They will have to choose," Elena said, eyes sharp. "Fight accountability and lose everything. Or face the cameras, admit their bias, and help us change." The crowd roared. Headlines wrote themselves in real time. Maya streamed live, whispering breathlessly into her mic. 250,000. Global trending. #Carter Protocol #1. Back inside the jet bridge, Reynolds leaned against the wall, sweat dripping down his neck. Holt collapsed into a seat, hands trembling. Elena stepped close, lowering her voice just enough for microphones to miss. "This doesn't have to be your ending. It can be your beginning. Own what you did. On camera. Show people you can change. Or you'll be remembered as villains forever." Reynolds looked at her, broken. "And if we do?" "Then maybe," Elena said softly, "redemption will carry more weight than your mistakes. She straightened, facing the flood of cameras again. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced, her voice carrying across the terminal now, across the world. "Welcome to the new standard of American skies. The Carter Protocol begins tonight." The crowd erupted. Reporters shouted. Phones soared higher. Hashtags flashed across screens worldwide. And in that storm, Elena Carter walked forward. Unshaken. The footage spread faster than turbulence. Within an hour of landing, clips of Elena Carter's calm voice, "Bias hides in plain sight," played on CNN, MSNBC, Fox, TikTok, everywhere at once. The number of livestream views crossed 3 million by midnight. Stock trackers lit up with red arrows. United Skies down 9%. Market cap shaved by $1.4 billion. Analysts shouted on business channels. Unprecedented. Biggest mid-PR disaster in aviation history. Carter just rewrote the rulebook. In a glass tower in Dallas, the United Skies Executive Board convened at 3 a.m. The skyline outside was black, dotted with red aircraft lights. Inside, the air smelled of burnt coffee and fear. CEO Robert Jordan paced the head of the table, tie loosened. "We can't survive another day of this. We need a unified statement." Patricia Holley cut him off. "It's already out." Carter issued it from the plane. The Carter Protocol. It's live. And people love it. She doesn't have unilateral authority. She's the chairwoman, Hollis snapped. "She has more authority than all of us combined." Silence. Screens on the wall replayed the viral clip of Elena holding up her tablet, announcing mandatory bias training and body cams. Every network replayed it on loop. Jordan dropped into his chair, burying his face in his hands. She didn't just change the company. She changed the entire industry. Meanwhile, in a Phoenix hotel room, Maya Ortiz sat cross-legged on her bed, phone buzzing nonstop. CNN wanted her. 60 Minutes wanted her. Her follower count had tripled overnight. She stared at her cracked phone case, disbelief still flooding her. She whispered into a new stream. 3.2 million views. "And I was just a freelancer on vacation. Tonight, I was a witness to history." Her comments scrolled too fast to read. Back at the Phoenix terminal, reporters still clustered outside the cordoned jet bridge. Reynolds and Holt sat in a small room with blinds drawn, waiting for HR, legal, God knows who else. Reynolds rubbed his face with both hands. 25 years. Gone. Holt shook her head, pale. Not gone, destroyed. A knock. The door opened. Elena stepped in. No cameras now. Just her, the two of them, and silence. "You'll get offers," Elena said. "TV interviews. Book deals. People want villains to hate. You can give them that. Or," she leaned forward, "you can give them redemption." Holt whispered. "What does that mean?" "It means standing beside me. Owning what you did. Traveling hub to hub, telling crews what bias looks like, what it costs. Not a punishment. A sentence of service." Reynolds blinked. "You'd trust us? After tonight?" Elena's eyes were steel. "Not trust, accountability. Trust died in that cabin. Redemption is all that's left." They said nothing. But the offer hung in the air like oxygen. By dawn, every airline CEO in America was on the phone. Delta, American, Southwest, all demanding briefings. All asking the same question: what if it happens to us? The FAA announced hearings. Senators tweeted statements. Civil rights groups called. Elena's speech, the Rosa Parks moment of the skies, and in her hotel suite overlooking the Phoenix skyline, Elena Carter sat at her desk, a half-drunk cup of tea beside her, drafting another letter. This one wasn't to the board. It was to the Department of Transportation. Subject: industry-wide adoption of the Carter Protocol. Immediate. Mandatory. She read the words aloud. Slow and final. Because justice doesn't stop at one airline. It flies everywhere. She hit send and across the country. The aviation industry braced for impact. 6 months later, the skies looked different. Every flight attendant at United Skies now wore a discreet body camera on their uniform. Every captain carried a handheld policy guide embossed with the words, Carter Protocol. Training rooms across the country buzzed. Videos from Flight 1924 played on loop. Holt's trembling voice saying, "People like her don't sit here," followed by Elena Carter's calm rebuke, "Intent doesn't erase impact." Crews squirmed in their seats watching it. Some cried. Some glared. But all of them listened. At Dallas headquarters, a massive banner stretched across the lobby. United Skies. Dignity takes flight. Company's reputation, once bleeding, had reversed. Passenger trust surveys soared. Bookings rebounded. Competitors scrambled to copy the reforms. The FAA made Carter Protocol training mandatory for all U.S. airlines. Congress held hearings, cameras flashing as Elena testified before lawmakers. "This isn't just aviation," she told the committee. "This is America. Every industry has bias. The question is, what will you do when the camera turns on you?" The clip went viral. Again, for Reynolds and Holt, the road back was brutal. They became traveling case studies. Standing in front of hangars full of new hires, microphones clipped to their collars, they told the story again and again. Reynolds's voice always cracked at the same line. "I didn't realize I'd removed 15 passengers of color. 15. Until she showed me the numbers." Holt's tears came predictably when she said, "My daughter asked me, 'Mom, why did you think she didn't belong?' I had no answer. Now my answer is, I was wrong. And I won't let it happen again." Some audiences booed them. Some clapped. Some filmed angrily, uploading commentary. But slowly, painfully, they became something new. Not heroes. Not villains. Something rarer. Examples. Maya Ortiz had gone from freelancer to national correspondent. Her live stream, grainy, shaky, unplanned, was still used in college journalism courses. She now ran the Witness Project, a nonprofit teaching ordinary people how to record injustice safely and effectively. When asked why she started it, she always smiled and said, "Because one shaky livestream changed the world." And Elena? The chairwoman had become a reluctant icon. Civil rights leaders quoted her speeches. Business schools studied her moves. Passengers stopped her in airports to whisper thanks, but she stayed focused. Always forward. Always building. On a quiet evening in Phoenix, 6 months to the day since Flight 1924, she sat at her desk overlooking the city lights. Her inbox pinned with a new email. Subject, "Thank you." From Sarah Thompson, Columbus, Ohio. "Ms. Carter, last week I was on a United Skies flight. I saw them treating a Latino family the way they once treated you. This time was different. I remembered your story. I started recording. I spoke up. The family kept their seats. Thank you for showing me how to be brave." Elena read it twice, then forwarded it to Maya. Her phone buzzed again. A text from Taryn Holt. "Detroit training tomorrow. 500 new hires. Still nervous every time. But their faces when they get it. Worth everything." Another text. From Captain Reynolds. "My son asked to join me at the next session. He said he's proud his dad learned to change." Elena set the phone down. Outside, a jet roared overhead, contrails glowing orange in the sunset. She whispered to herself, "Sometimes justice flies 30,000 feet above the ground," and this time, it had landed. 3 years later, airports looked different. Check-in counters displayed a new pledge in bold silver letters. Every passenger. Every flight. Dignity guaranteed. Security lines moved under the gaze of body cameras. Flight attendants greeted passengers with words that felt less like protocol, more like promise. Captains began safety briefings not just with oxygen masks, but with, and remember, respect is part of safety. Across the Atlantic, British Airways announced its own Carter Protocol. Japan Airlines followed. Emirates adopted bias training modules built from Flight 1924 footage. Even low-cost carriers, once dismissive, plastered slogans on their bulkheads. Belonging at 30,000 feet, the ripple had become a tide. Maya Ortiz stood in a lecture hall at Columbia University. Behind her, the shaky livestream from Seat 3, a plate on a giant screen, her nervous hands. Alina's calm defiance, Holt's breaking voice. On that night, Maya told the room full of journalism students, "I thought I was just holding up a phone. But what I was really holding was a mirror. A mirror so the world could see itself clearly, ugly and undeniable." That's what storytelling does. That's what you'll do. The students rose in a standing ovation. In Dallas, Reynolds adjusted his tie nervously backstage. His son, now tall enough to wear his old pilot wings, clapped him on the shoulder. "Dad," the boy said, "I'm proud you didn't run from it." Reynolds stepped out to the podium. Hundreds of new pilots waited, notebooks open. He swallowed hard, then began. 20 years in this uniform, and I thought I knew what fairness looked like. I was wrong. Tonight, I'll tell you how a passenger know, how a leader showed me the cost of not questioning myself. The room leaned in. Redemption was never smooth. But it was real. As for Elena Carter, she had stopped being just a chairwoman. She had become a figure larger than the company itself. Civil rights museums requested her papers. Universities taught case studies named after her. And in Geneva, when the International Aviation Council voted unanimously to adopt the Carter Protocol worldwide, she delivered only 5 words. Dignity should not need passports. The chamber erupted in applause. That night, back in her Phoenix home, Elena sat by the window with a glass of tea. The city shimmered below, planes rising into the night sky every few minutes, their lights blinking like fireflies. Her phone buzzed. Another email. Another thank you. This one from a teenager in Brazil who had filmed a bus driver trying to remove an immigrant family. The video had saved them. She smiled faintly. Forwarded it to Maya, to Reynolds, to Holt, the old circle. The ones who had lived Flight 1924. Then she whispered, almost to herself, almost to the night sky, "Justice doesn't board one flight. It boards them all." A plane roared overhead, climbing, carrying strangers. And for the first time in decades, Elena felt the sky itself was lighter, because somewhere above 30,000 feet, dignity was flying too. From one woman's calm defiance came the Carter Protocol. From a single live stream came reform across an entire industry. And maybe that's the lesson tonight. Real change doesn't wait in boardrooms. It happens when ordinary people choose courage over silence. What will you do when the camera is in your hands? Thanks for watching. If you believe stories like this deserve to be heard, don't forget to subscribe, and let's keep flying toward justice together. *.